I'm Dean Barber, founder and CEO of Barber Financial Group. It is December 2nd as we record this. I've got Jason Newcomer, certified financial planner, joining me today to give you some updates on a record-breaking month in November. Everybody says we want to put 2020 in the rearview mirror, but I'll take a lot of Novembers of 2020. Enjoy the program. Okay, Jason. So let's unpack this a little bit. Let's go back to October before we talk about November, because in October, you and I were getting question after question after question. What's going to happen if Joe Biden wins? I'm scared to death. What's going to go on the stock market? The election's got me freaked out. You and I weren't talking about the election because we know that through all election cycles, while there might be a little hysteria at the beginning of them, we can go back and look at Democratic presidents, Republican presidents, divided Congress, united Congress, and through all of those cycles, the difference in the returns of the market aren't significantly different. So what were we focused on instead?
Yeah, I mean, back in October, there was a lot of talk about the election. And in your monthly economic update video that you did a month ago, it was a totally different world, it seemed. Before the news about the vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna, the focus was solely on the election. The stock market was down. I think the Dow, when you recorded that video, was headed for its worst week in 6-7 months, since the pandemic. So it was a totally different world back then. And it's only been 30 days.
And it has been 30 days. And what we said in that video was basically that COVID-19 posed a far greater threat to our outlook for 2021, 2022, etc., than who became the next president of the United States. I think I said during that particular update that unless we get a vaccine or some sort of meaningful, effective treatment for COVID-19, it wasn't going to matter who was in the White House, because the American consumer, you and I, our clients, everybody around us, we make up 70% of the gross domestic product in this country. And so until the consumer is able to get out and live their lives and spend money like they want to spend it, we're not going to see meaningful, robust growth in the economy. Well, guess what? 5 days after the election, we get the announcement from Pfizer. A couple of days later from Moderna. Now all of a sudden, the stock market is on fire, and we had some record-setting numbers in the month of November. What do you think was, in your mind, the most amazing turnaround in the month of November?
You started to see kind of a rotation, right? The things that during the pandemic so far have been working, the technology stocks, those things had really been leading the way. And then all of a sudden there was a rotation that really took place starting in November with news of the vaccine. You saw the post-pandemic stocks, in quotation marks, start to take off. The things that had been hit the hardest, those are the stocks that really turned and led the way. And you started to see kind of a weakening at first in the technology stocks. So I don't think that they're done now, but the places in the market that have been hit the hardest, even small cap stocks, really had their best month ever.
Here's an interesting one. I got another chart pulled up here on another computer screen, but energy stocks, Jason, still through the time of this recording, down 38.5% year to date. But energy stocks on average were up 28.6% in the month of November. Well, what is that telling us? That's telling us that if we have a vaccine, that all of a sudden we might get back to normal travel. Airlines might start flying at normal schedules again sometime in the next 12 to 18 months. Cruise ships might start going again. People get back out and they're taking vacations and they're doing things and they're going to the ballpark and all the sports are open back up. People are going back out to eat. The energy stocks were absolutely on fire. And some other phenomenons that I think are taking place that are even removed from COVID. Now, we could say this is a positive effect of COVID. Look at real estate. Look at housing. We had a 102% increase in mortgage applications from November of 19 through November of 20, 102% increase in mortgage applications. And we set a record of a 28% increase in mortgage application for home purchases, right? This isn't just refinancing that's going on here. This is home purchases. And I think what we're seeing here with the home purchases is going to help really drive our economy forward for the next several years. And that is the next generation out there, right? The millennial generation starting to buy houses. Over 35% of the new home purchases out there today are being purchased by people between the ages of 25 and 35. So that millennial generation is finally really starting to say, I'm tired of the apartment, ready to start having kids and families. I'm moving out. We're going to buy a house in the suburbs. And you can't buy a house unless you're there on the first or second day of the open house, because people are getting multiple offers. And it's not just happening here in Kansas City where you and I live, but it's happening across the country, which I think this is a huge positive sign for a longer term economic outlook. What's your take?
I think it is. And you know, what you're saying kind of echoes what we're starting to see headlines, you know, is the 2020s starting to mirror the 1920s? And are we setting up coming out of this for a roaring 20s decade? And there are some pretty interesting parallels when you talk about the Spanish flu versus the coronavirus pandemic. Obviously, two completely different scales. I think the Spanish flu, a third of the world's population was infected with that virus. So totally different scale, although we're not through the end of the coronavirus pandemic just yet. There seemed to be light at the end of the tunnel with this vaccine news. But once we do come out on the other side, how much cash is on the sidelines that's just been waiting to be spent, whether it's on vacations or houses or discretionary goods? There's certainly a lot of appetite to be spending money right now. And I think as soon as we can get that vaccine distributed, amongst the public, the sooner that we start to see some of those expectations that we're now seeing being priced into the market start to come to fruition.
You know, a lot of people are asking the question, have we already seen the vaccine bounce? Is this it? And you know, how much further can this really go? Are the companies really making this kind of money? And you and I both know that there are a lot of sectors of the market that are still very beaten down, that even though they had some incredible bounce back in the month of November, they're still way off of their 52-week highs. And so while it may be a rotation away from big tech in the short term, I don't think technology is going anywhere. You know, you look at Apple, you look at Amazon, you look at Zoom, and you look at these technology companies that are really driving the way we live. They're changing the way we live. I think those technologies are here to stay. Those are going to be a part of people's portfolios. But I do think it's time to take a step back and say, all right, is this time to maybe get more interested in small caps? Is this time to get maybe more interested in the energy sector? Is this time to get more interested in the hospitality sector, cruise lines? Think about Las Vegas and the casino stocks and those types of things. A lot of those are still, 30, 40, 50% off of their, their February highs. If this vaccine does what we think it can do those stocks still have the ability to recover? And do we still have some time to make up some ground there or some opportunities?
Yeah, and I'm also really interested to see, of course, we're not going to find this out for some time, but the other technological developments that come out of this pandemic. Similar to the Industrial Revolution that we had in the 1920s. Now this is more of maybe a biotechnological revolution that we'll see play out here in the 2020s with some of these new technologies they're using with these vaccines.
We had some great stuff happen in the month of November. We're now into December. Everybody, I think, is of the same opinion. Let's get through December. Let's get through Christmas and get 2020 in the rearview mirror. Let's move on to 2021, maybe greener pastures. We do still have some political strife out there today. We have a president that's not yet conceded that he has lost. We still have a Senate race in Georgia that's up in the air. That runoff election doesn't come until January 5th. So there still is some political uncertainty, and some things could change in the markets around that if, in fact, the Democrats take both of the Georgia Senate seats. That could change the landscape and the mood of the markets as well. What are your thoughts there?
Absolutely. It's an important election to watch, and it's unfortunate that we're not going to know the result of the Senate race until after 2020 is concluded. I guess we'll find out in January if the Republicans pick up one of those seats. Then they have the tiebreaker in the Senate. Of course, the Democrats will hold office with the executive branch and the House of Representatives. So if they also control that third, Senate, then they're probably going to be able to get through the Biden policy proposals maybe a little bit easier with respect to tax policies. That's really the unknown is where are we going to see corporate tax rates in 2021 and beyond? What are we going to see with capital gains treatment? What are we going to see with the top of the tax brackets? Those are all things that we wish we had an answer to after the election, but unfortunately, it may be 2 months after the election day before we have an answer.
Well, and even as we come back and do this same video and share with you our thoughts for 2020 as a whole, that's still going to be hanging over our heads, and we won't know that. My best guess is we'll be doing a special announcement after that runoff election in Georgia, kind of let you know what our thoughts are there. I'm going to go back to energy stocks really quickly because that's one of the sectors that's been hit the hardest throughout the year and for really good reason. And I believe that one of the reasons why we've seen the energy stocks rebound so much was the thought that the Republicans would retain control of the Senate, because I think the energy policies of the Biden administration are as important to the energy sector as a whole as the COVID vaccine. Because if we approach this with a Democratic-controlled Senate along with the House and the White House, then the Green New Deal starts to take shape, and that, as well as I do, could really put a lot of pressure on energy stocks. So while we may think that we've got a green light because of COVID, we may still have the Green New Deal coming around the corner if, in fact, the Democrats take control of the Senate by winning both of the Senate seats in Georgia. So that's something that's unknown. So maybe a little bit too early to go out and load up on those energy stocks that are still down close to 40% on the year. But I still think there's some opportunities out there. Obviously, we're keeping an eye on those things. And Jason, one of the things that we've done throughout the year this year, and I know you wrote a couple of articles on it, we've done some videos on it, is rebalancing in times of either rapid market growth or even of market decline. And we'll be doing some more of that, I'm sure, towards the end of the year here, because we've had, at this point in time, as we talk, this month of November has really, really been a good month. We might wind up with an excess in equities and some areas we might want to add some money to as we roll into 2021.
Yeah, that's right. Especially the things that have been the hottest, most recently, the small cap stocks. I think it's been a prudent idea that if you were rebalancing your portfolio back while the market was down in March and in April, you're not done yet. It's a never-ending process, and you need to be going through your portfolio regularly and looking at opportunities and kind of deciding when is enough and when do I need to start selling off some of those positions that have.
Jason, I'm gonna share one chart here, Jason, that I think is really critical, and I'm gonna go to a chart here that is the Russell 2000. It's here in gold. And the S&P 500 is the purple line. And so what people are seeing here is this is, and you did this, right? You did this in the portfolios that held small caps at a time when people would have thought, why would I want to put more money in small caps? Well, if the small caps were more beaten up, we rebalanced into more small cap here. And those small caps are now up 83.21% coming off of the March lows. While the S&P 500 is up a paltry 63.77. They're both great off of their lows. Now, they're both seeing good positive returns on a year-to-date basis. But check it out. Even after that amazing run-up off the lows, the small caps are still trailing the S&P 500 by almost 4%. year to date. So the question is, do those small caps still have some room to run after this massive run up that we saw in the month of November?
It's very possible that they do. And, even if their future earnings outlook is, just as bright or maybe even more bright than, say, the S&P 500, it's still probably prudent that after such a massive run up that you just showed on that previous slide, you start to take some of those gains at least and move those back into the funds, maybe a bond fund or so. If that was your source of liquidity to make the purchase in March and April, start to restock on that purchase because at some point in time, we're going to see another decline in the market, whether it's because we've run too far too fast or something totally unforeseen. Like you said, these things are just impossible to predict.
All right, well, I guess we got a few more days left here in 2020. We'll be joining you again in 2021. I'm Dean Barber along with Jason Newcomer, Barber Financial Group. We wish all of you a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday season. We hope you get an opportunity to spend time with friends and family. We wish you all to stay very healthy and stay safe. And keep in mind that we're here for you. And if you want to talk about what's going on with your portfolios, if you want to talk about how all the recent activities and the recent returns in the market have affected your portfolios and whether there's adjustments to be made, we're here for you. Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Dean.